Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore!
Hey guys, we got a fun one for you today. My guest is returning champion Amy Gittelman. She is a fellow Binghamton alumni, and yes, we kind of perseverate maybe a little too much in the first half of the show on what it's like to go there as a downstate Jew in the 80s and 90s, but it's worth the conversation. The gist of this is that we've both been working in healthcare, communications, and advocacy. Her sister had ovarian cancer. She's been dealing with all sorts of fun fuckery in her life. But, you know, we really get to the meat and potatoes in the second half when we just talk about endless bullshit from the health insurance industry and the hospital industry, and how medical practices have chicanery and all sorts of ways to screw with us. Anyway, it's kind of venting therapy that we can all nod our heads to, and it's worth the listen. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Out of Patience returning champion for her second appearance, Amy Gittelman. Remember pop-up video on VH1?
Have I lived in a cave?
Yeah.
Of course I know.
I miss pop-up video. But then who watches VH1 anymore?
I can't imagine who. But I also didn't love pop-up video. I liked the, like those background things with like Motley Crue where they were like, we were snorting ants. We thought it was Coke. We were snorting ants.
Do you like... Oh God, 70s rock and roll, 80s rock and roll.
80s,
what
yeah.
they gave away, what they got away with, actually insane. Do you remember the remote control game show on MTV with Mark? It wasn't Mark Summers. I forget the name of the guy. Listeners will know the name of the guy because
was it the college one where all the kids?
No, they were like 16 televisions.
No.
Like Hollywood Squares, but TVs, and they had all these pop culture. Anyway, we're nostalgifying ourselves because we're old.
If you asked my sister and my close friends, they would tell you I don't remember anything, which is partially true. But I do remember words to songs, and that came up yesterday on a car trip. And it was I was sitting there thinking, like, I can't remember what I had for lunch yesterday.
But you remember.
I remember, like, Southern Cross from, you know, Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and every other song that was on the radio.
And tell me you had them on vinyl.
I did have a lot of vinyl, and then I didn't keep it, which I regret. And then I replaced everything with CDs, which I still have.
You mean cassette tape first,
and
then
then CDs. I didn't have a lot of cassette tapes, but I did have cassette tapes.
Wait, you skipped from vinyl to CD-ROM or CD?
Kind of. I mean, I had some tapes. I'm proud to say I never had an 8-track. I'm very happy to say that.
Yeah, or Betamax.
I never had a Beta, but we couldn't afford even to have one. Yeah, I know.
I think our first VCR was probably in the mid-90s when they became maybe $199 and not $600. Like Crazy Eddie.
I was just going to say,
The
did you
Wiz.
get it a Crazy Eddie? Nobody beats The Wiz.
Nobody
and
beats
Crazy
The
Eddie
Wiz.
Price is so low, they're practically giving it all away.
Or if it's a New York thing, PC Richards.
Right. Well, our most recent TV is from a PC Richards.
Yeah.
Sony OLED.
Not a sponsor. Although, hey, PC Richards, I'm giving you a free shout out here. God, I can't do the whistle where. Good job.
I'm a great whistler. I love whistling. My son loves whistling. And I discussed with him the other day of trying to like do competition whistling, and he laughed in my face. But he's 19 and a sophomore in college. So.
Anyone listening from like the Midwest or the West Coast, like, what the fuck is PC Richards? And why are they whistling on the show? This is supposed to be a healthcare fuckery. Yeah, we're going to get there. I promise we're going to get there. We have to start with Binghamton.
Okay.
Because was that how we first met?
I don't know, but somehow we met. I really don't know how we met. I don't remember, to my point earlier, that I don't remember anything.
Right.
But we did both go to Binghamton, although when I went, and maybe when you went, it was SUNY Binghamton.
Yes, I used to have a hoodie that said SUNY Binghamton on it. I don't know where it went. I bought it like freshman year in 92. They sold it in the Quad, not even the bookstore. And God, I miss SUNY Binghamton. They hate when you say that, and you can't find it on the internet.
Really?
I feel like they've scraped SUNY Binghamton from all existence.
Well, they can't, because I still have in my closet easily my SUNY Binghamton sweatshirt.
I want that. We need to do a podcast called I'm Still Calling It SUNY Binghamton.
I still call it. I mean, I'm not calling it Binghamton University. They can call it whatever they want. Just like I didn't change my name when I got married at 34. My name is Amy Gittelman.
Wow.
But I married a Miller. You can call me Mrs. Miller. I'll use Miller for a restaurant reservation.
Right. Well,
But-
it's probably easier to spell than Gittelman.
Well, no one can spell Gittelman.
Right.
Ever.
By the way, my grandmother's middle name was Gittel.
Yes, I have a friend who calls me Gittel.
Yeah. Hanna Gittel
Right, exactly.
from Poland.
Right, which,
Yeah.
lately, I don't know. I might tell him to stop calling me that.
Right. Mrs. Miller.
Mrs.
That's just
Miller.
so, you are not a Mrs. Miller. You are totally Amy Gittelman.
Damn right.
So, yeah, SUNY Binghamton. So you're from downstate, right?
I am from Forest Hills, Queens.
Did you lose your mind when you first discovered Wegmans?
Wegmans wasn't there when I was there, but I knew about Wegmans because I have cousins in Rochester.
Oh, okay.
So I had been to Wegmans many times before Binghamton. But we did finally get, I think we had like the giant supermarket, which was abysmal. But then they opened a, I think it was called like a food chopper or something.
food shopper. Yeah, something like that.
I feel like it was Chop,
This
but
is
I don't.
before like Stop and Shop. Yeah,
Well, I don't even know. I mean, this was we were there from 85 to 89,
right.
as I just aged myself on this podcast.
But you look great.
Thanks.
No, because I think they changed to Binghamton University my sophomore year.
Wow.
And it was like it's like they had a parade to demolish the sign outside Vestal Parkway and replace it. They were so proud to have this elitist way of thinking about the same damn college.
I think they should call it Vestal University because it's in Vestal.
Well, wasn't it like Harper College for a while?
It was originally Harper College and it was a liberal arts school.
Right. And it's not actually in Binghamton.
It's in Vestal.
It's in like Binghamton adjacent.
Vestal.
Vestal. The gorgeous, exotic, Zagat 5-star rated town of Vestal, New York.
I did visit it with my son when he was looking at colleges, and I just remember like I don't know if it's Vestal Parkway or whatever.
Vestal Parkway.
And which kind of for us back then ended at the Denny's, and then it was just like darkness.
It was farmland, yeah.
Right. And now it just goes on for miles and miles and
Well, now
miles.
it's like Route 9 or Route 1 in Jersey. It's endless.
Right. It's like car dealerships.
Pave paradise and put up a parking lot.
Right. It's kind of like Applebee's kind of places.
Well, again, one of the things that I was not prepared for when I got there was this notion of Wegmans, because we had like, I don't know, like Acme, Wallbaum's, Pathmark,
It was. You mean where we grew up?
Seatown.
Right.
This
Where
is the
yeah.
shitty super.
Key-
We had no
Key
idea
Food.
how bad it was. Key Food.
Key Food was our supermarket in Forest Hills.
I mean, they took us to Wegmans during orientation, like just to show us what that was like, knowing downstate kids never had any clue it could be this experience. But that was the first year they opened up the Walmart and the movie theater. So Vestal Town Plaza was born in 92. And we're like, oh, that's okay. Let's go there. So that was when like the Denny's wasn't the end of the universe in Vestal.
I remember the Kmart in like the Vestal shopping strip mall, and I bought a hot pink beanbag. And then sophomore year, some really large guy sat in it, and it became a donut. And then I don't know why I kept it. I don't know why. I just never got rid of it.
Did you?
I mean,
have,
I
like,
did then, after college. It's not like I still have it, everyone.
Did you get to pick your roommate, or you got some townie or some other person from downstate? Like, it's Long Island North up there.
I got someone also from Queens who seemed like she would be cool when I spoke to her on the telephone, and a rotary phone at that.
The rotary phone, yes.
Yeah. And then when we got there, we couldn't have been more different. And she would like hang those posters where it's like a kitten hanging from a branch and it says, "Hang in there, baby."
Oh, God.
Like those kind of things. And that just infuriated me. And she also wrote the lyrics to Billy Joel songs and put them on our door, but on the outside. And I was like, listen, on the inside, you want to hang up things of lyrics of songs, whatever, but like you're not putting it on the door.
Oh, God. What?
We were in Newing in Delaware, but on the
Delaware.
first floor. And it was a girls' floor only. You know, like that side was girls. But then the next year, sophomore year, I lived across the hall from someone who is my best friend, still a boy, you know, man. So
Yeah.
we were on the same hall as boys. And I don't even know if they would allow that now.
I don't know if there might be co-ed at this point. There's so many new communities up there. They built like 3 new ones, and they demolished Newing, and it's brand new if you haven't been there in a while.
I have, and I saw it, and I vomited a little in my throat because it made me so sick to see these beautiful, what looked like almost
Air
like
conditioning.
Jersey City condos with air conditioning. And we were stuck.
All right, so just wrap up. My favorite story at Binghamton, non-like major classroom stuff, was my sophomore year. I was stuck with a townie. I don't know if you can say that anymore. Going to get canceled for saying townie. A local.
Someone from the town. I feel like
Yes.
that's not...
He wasn't quite of the downstate culture, and he had all of his like high school friends come over all the time and smoke weed and cigarettes in our suite. Of course, illegal, and he got chased out, and it was disgusting. But I lucked out because he wound up accidentally setting fire to the couch in the common area and got expelled.
Nice.
So I had the dorm to myself for a whole semester.
Nice.
So thank you, Jeff Balcom. If you're hearing this story, I doubt it. But all of this kind of shaped us, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
How did you decide? I mean, did you graduate with like a BA in philosophy and you wound up doing something else?
I didn't know what I wanted to do. I think my parents both thought I would end up being an attorney because I was quite verbose and probably argumentative and won those arguments a lot. Mm-hmm. But I paid for college myself and worked up there. Like I stacked my classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays and worked full time, like Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I worked at Lehman up at Binghamton.
Oh.
The first year I worked on campus, but I think it was like $2.15 an hour. And I was just like, what?
Fine.
Even then, like what would I have bought with that? Gum? Like I don't even know what I would have bought with that. And
it's a subscription to Harper Magazine.
Right, barely.
Like, where did communications and advertising and marketing show up?
So they didn't have communications. They didn't really have, they had like math marketing, I feel like, where it was very math oriented, and I'm not a math person. So I was a BA in rhetoric and literature.
Lit-ret, yeah.
Yeah, so that was, okay, that was cool. There were some classes I remember quite vividly that I loved, and then many that I can't even discuss. But then I was a cinema and Jewish history double minor.
Wow.
Yeah.
Of course, you're Jewish.
Well, really, because
Gittelman.
Professor Rabbi Sussman, or I don't know if it's Rabbi Professor Sussman.
I had Rabbi Sussman.
So he was like a very nice guy, like unbelievably nice, ridiculously nice. But he also was very straightforward in his teaching. And before every test, he would, not in the order necessarily, but he would give you the answers. Like if you went to the review before the test, if you failed that test, that means you were like brain dead. I don't even know how you could fail the test. I basically got an A in all of his classes. And then he let me do like a work study thing with him senior year.
Wait, did he recruit you to Chabad?
He did not. He did
Okay.
not. I think it was clear that I was not a Chabad girl. I think that was quite obvious.
I went once for like Rosh Hashanah services, and I think they still mail me shit.
I don't doubt it. But I will say, so I'm of the generation, all of my friends' kids and my kid, they're all in college. And I'm always donating to Hillel and sending the Hamantashen on Purim from Hillel to my kid up in college or down in college because he's down south. And they all say when they go to these events, they go to Chabad because the food is better.
It is better. I remember. I mean, I think we had like Marriott dorm food, in the dining halls?
We did. It was not good.
It was better than Albany, so I heard, but I think we did better than some of the SUNYs.
So my freshman year, we did not have Marriott. Then it changed to Marriott, and it did get better. It was costlier, but like the meals themselves, I mean, I remember we probably ate bacon double cheeseburgers almost every night. And then they had the soft serve chocolate ice cream and vanilla. I'm a chocolate girl. And we would put Rice Krispies in it. And we ate that every day.
That's a quality diet for college students.
Oh my God.
You know, there's a Starbucks in Hinman Dining Hall now.
I believe it.
It's crazy.
I believe it.
All right. So let's talk about how we have a shared like agency-ish background.
We do.
And I have such a disdain for the way it's been sort of co-opted and just apathetically driven in the healthcare space, right?
Well, first, I do feel like there are frustrations to working with agencies, but I understand their frustration because they're at the behest of their client. Mm-hmm. They're doing strategy, media buying, planning. They're dealing with many, many vendors. You know, I think about sending out proposals and would I rather hear feedback sooner or get positive feedback in general? Yes. But I can't imagine what it must be like. And I think that they're working way more than 8 to 10 hours a day. So I understand those teams and how difficult it must be for them. But it is interesting how the industry has morphed and how many avenues there are for pharmaceutical brands to spend their money outside of TV. You know, we all see TV ads. I don't even know. I feel like it's
side
pharma.
Effects may include death, and death.
That's true. And from the mouths of babes, I remember this was a long time ago. I think my son was 5, and we were watching something. My husband, I think, was on a business trip, and it was just pharma commercial after pharma commercial after pharma commercial. And he was a big listener, like he'd listen to music lyrics, like he was really into that. And which I have a funny story about, which I could tell later. But he said, "Mommy, why would anyone take these drugs? The side effects are terrible." And I was like, yes. And I really had no other thing to say other than you need the ISI, which we discussed on the last podcast.
Right. Yeah, this is your returning champion show.
Yes, my returning champion. I actually did really well on Jeopardy the other night.
Oh, yeah?
I don't think I would have if I was there in person, but I could have won.
You like the Ken Jennings way of doing the show?
I don't dislike it, but you know, no one can replace Alec Trebek.
No. All right, I want to ask you a question before the break, and it's kind of yes or no, but it's just a funny question. Is they spend like $26 billion in TV ads and radio and pop-up video. Right? Is there any record of sort of an American media consumer, right, seeing a pharma ad and literally talking to their doctor about it? But there's a part 2 here, and their doctor says, "Sure, let's get you on that."
Not to my knowledge, but I guarantee many, a high percentage of people ask their doctor. And that is the end of every commercial. Ask your doctor about whatever the drug is. But I think doctors, for the most part, do care about whether it's comorbidities or how this particular drug might impact this particular patient and prescribe the right thing regardless.
Right.
At least I hope.
So let's take a quick break, and we're going to come back and talk about insurance fuckery.
Excellent.
All right. Stay tuned for a few words from the sponsor that talks about side effects. No, I don't think there were any pharma ads in the mid-rolls. All right. We'll be right back. So we're taping this show in December, and it's probably going to air sometime in like late January, mid-February, I'm not sure. But I think what we're going to talk about now is the theme is going to be pretty consistent, and I'm sure we'll still be talking about the murder of the United Healthcare CEO and the ripple effect it's had in the country and what it's revealed. And I think there was a term during World War II when Japan bombed Pearl Harbor. They realized that they had awakened the sleeping beast. and that we were just ready for a Pacific warfare front after what the shit was going on in Europe at the same time. And there's kind of an analog here where America is the sleeping beast of patients not being able to vent about these absolutely frustrating, ridiculously, sometimes murder, death-causing decisions that we're already paying for the privilege of having insurance, which is terrible, and then they still get to determine whether you need it or not. Like, for listeners, she's nodding her head. I'm sure you're nodding your head. But, you know, there's no like, what do you think about this question? But how do you square the circle?
I do think that it is horrific that anyone would think that murder is the solution. However, I understand that why it happened, and I'm shocked it hasn't happened sooner. I hope it doesn't start a renegade type of group of people who think that this is the way to handle problems. However, the insurance companies, we use the term fuckery on this podcast, have been doing that for years. And I recently posted on LinkedIn, I do post about healthcare and insurance a lot because I work in that industry on the media side. And I read this week and posted about it, how back in 2005, Cigna had one of their insurance meetings, very much like the one that United Healthcare was having, at which Brian Thompson was murdered. And they decided at that time that that was when they were going to put the burden on the patient. So they would have, and I quote, skin in the game. And that's when they started with the deductibles. And that's when they started with the higher copays. And if you think about the fact that 100 million people in the US are in medical debt of some form, whether that's $10,000 or, God forbid, much more, something has to give. It can't be about the shareholders. You can't say you believe in patient centricity.
Jargon alert.
Right, exactly. When you literally do everything in your power to deny patients care, whether that is a prescription drug. I was actually with an elderly woman last night who's in her 90s and she has a skin condition, and a little tube of, I think it was 2 ounces or 3 ounces, even though she has Medicare and supplemental insurance to cover everything. And I guess the supplemental covers it, but the tube is $275. Mm-hmm. And it just seems ridiculous. And I know, using my mom as an example, she has AFib, she's on whatever drug, and it was like $600 a month or something like that. And I just said, Mom, first of all, let's call Canada, let's go online and get it from Canada. Or perhaps Mark Cuban has the drug on his platform, which it isn't. Currently, it isn't. That doesn't mean that won't change, because I think he's at least a game changer in a positive way and does believe in patient centricity. But my mom lives on a very, very low fixed income, which is why she moved to Florida, so she could live out her life and be able to afford it. But yet, finally, I made her call, and I also called the manufacturer and went through the whole process. And I think now it's like $275 or $300 or something. So half or less than half than the $600. But why was it $600 in the first place?
Is that one of those like chemo creams that just cost that much money? Because my mother-in-law is on one of those, and she just pays like $300 a month for it. It's crazy.
No, the elderly woman I was with last night was just a regular cream for like some kind of eczema or something like that. For my mom, it's a heart drug. But either way, I don't see why either one would cost that much. Certainly something that is 3 ounces or less seems like.
Do you have like a personal Mount Rushmore of the utmost fuckery you've gone through personally with health insurance?
I have like a very recent example, and then I have an example from 2013. The recent example is I've had a lot of pain in my hands and elbows. I actually was taking piano lessons, and it became like I was unable to play. And I finally got an appointment with a doctor at HSS, which for those of you out there is Hospital for Special Surgery, which is all about like joints. And they told me I have arthritis in my hands and my elbows. Fine, I can accept that. And I maybe saw the doctor, I think I was with her for 8 minutes, maybe 9. And she was lovely, and I'm glad that she was able to diagnose me, and they ran some x-rays first. And I got a bill saying, you owe $530.81. Now, understand, I have employer paid, and I obviously chip in insurance, and one would think that that would have been covered. I was charged for those 8 minutes $2,000. So she got paid whatever, or more than $1,400. And then I still owed $500.31. And I just think that's absurd. I do. I know there's like the customary payment and they are probably averaging that nationally. But I think maybe that's something they could look at. Maybe make it regional. If you're in New York City, these are the doctors who are here. Perhaps make it more regional. So I'm not paying $530. If the customary payment is $800, well, then just make it more for us. Whatever it is, there has to be a way. Have your actuaries figure that out. The other was both insurance and the doctor, where I broke both my arms in 2013. A biker crashed into me in Central Park, and I saw the doctor twice. He gave me slings, and by the way, this was both wrists and both elbows.
Oh boy.
Right. Be careful in Central Park, everyone. So he gave me slings for my elbows, and then he just gave me braces for my arms. He said he didn't want to cast me because I was in my 40s and I might not have the range of motion afterwards if I had been casted. So fine, I trust this guy. He's, of course, the doctor for everyone at New York City Ballet or something like that.
How did you get around? How did you pick things out of a cabinet?
It was very, very difficult. And of course, this happened on a Saturday and I was at work Monday. Like my face had road in it. I was like black and blue everywhere.
Oh, God.
And I had just started a new job. And even my boss was like, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, I just started a month ago. Like I have to be here and I'm managing a team." So I did persevere. And also I was very grateful at that time that I had a child, because had I not, if I didn't have to set an example for him, I feel like I would have gone into an abyss, but I didn't. So kudos to me for that moment.
I like your point about how it's not always the insurance company. I had some fuckery from my gastroenterologist once. Turns out he's a charlatan. But I turned 50 and they said, you should get a liver sonogram, just diagnostic liver sonogram, like a colonoscopy diagnostic. And I went in and I got it and it's fine. But the office billed it as an obesity test, which it wasn't.
Because you're not obese.
I'm not obese. I lost all this weight. I had like the best liver ever, right? But because they intentionally misbilled it, it went to my insurance company and it came back $8,000.
Ridiculous.
With no coverage. And it took me 6 months of fighting with them to finally get the right person. And of course, they used a third-party billing company that never answers their phone. But I finally got my primary care doctor to find the right person and tell them you need to fucking change this back to the diagnostic. And finally, they did it. And then, LabCorp came back and said, you don't owe us $8,000.
Right. So what happened in this case was this doctor to the, ballet stars of New York City, I get this bill from Cigna and it was over $11,000. Now, the explanation of benefits, the EOB said, I didn't owe anything. This is a man who gave me slings and splints and charged $11,000 plus. So I found this out after the second visit. The third visit was like the final checkup to see how I was or whatever. And it also said that he had performed surgery, which
did not
happen. I would have remembered. And I also would have had scars. And he was in his office with a resident who was like following him around. And I said, you might want to ask the resident to leave. I want to have a conversation with you. And he was like, no, he's going to be here for whatever. What do you have to say? And I said, well, and of course I brought the explanation of benefits with me. I said, just remind me, at what point did you perform surgery on me? Because I don't remember this at all. And he kept denying it. And he was putting it on his team and the paperwork people and the women in the back who code everything. I said, there's no way that that's what happened. I said, you definitely do this all the time. And I find it disgraceful. And I think it's just unbelievable thievery. And he said, you don't understand. I deal with people who are on Medicare or Medicaid, and I only get paid $50 and I'm performing surgery. And I said, how is that everyone else's problem? I said, and because of this, insurance premiums keep going up because you're charging so much. P.S. I then go after Cigna to say, why are you paying this? This is a false report. And they said it wasn't big enough for them to deal with.
Oh,
and I
God.
found that to be just the most morally reprehensible thing on both sides. I still can't believe it. And it's almost 11 years later.
Irrespective of him getting murdered. Again, murder bad.
Murder bad.
Murder bad. He was on his way to a shareholder meeting where he was going to reveal that they had record profits and had intentionally come up with an internal strategy to deny more and more people for the benefit of the shareholders.
Yes, and that's why the bullets said deny, delay, and I forget the third one.
Right.
Because that's what they're doing. So that's on the heels of, I guess, every 20 years, they have to make a change. So 20 years ago, it was higher copays, high deductibles, and even with deductibles. So I started my job that I'm at now in May. I think I have it's $3,000 individual and $6,000 for family deductible, which of course I haven't met, even with the ridiculous $2,000 bill for the arthritis doctor. And not only are we switching, even though it will be no extra cost to employees, so I do feel like my company goes out of their way to make it reasonable. I absolutely do believe that. I now have whether we switched insurance or not, your deductible always re-ups every year.
Right.
Or whatever it is. I mean, maybe it starts June 1st, maybe it starts April 1st, mine starts Jan 1. So now there's another $6,000 deductible again. And gratefully, my family and I are healthy.
Just stay out of Central Park.
Right, exactly. Don't ride your bike in Central Park.
So going back to the employer-based care, this speaks to the chicanery, if I can use my SAT word of the day.
Please do. Multisyllabic.
That you are stuck with what you get when you take a job. And sometimes people just need a job and they'll click the iTunes Terms of Service button to accept the benefits. Mm-hmm. And then one example, and I was very public about this about a year ago, my wife has been working for the same nonprofit since like 2000, like 20 plus 25 years. And they've had relatively good insurance. It helped us get through a couple of terrible things in the 2000s. It covered the kids and the twins and the IVF. And there was a lot of stuff that we were happy with. All the meds were there. They kept me on formulary. I'm only on like 6 post-cancer drugs that I'll never get off of, like side effect shit. And in 2023, the powers that be decided, let's just change insurance and pick the lowest tier shit. And like 8,000 employees basically were kicked off all their doctors and all their meds. And again, we had to find new pediatricians and new specialists. And I went to concierge because I had to. I belong to, again, not a sponsor, Baker Health. I'm very happy there. It's like $50 a month. I mean, it's okay. It's worth it. We allocate for it. But I walk in every day. Whenever I need them, they're there. And they manage, like I said, they got me unfucked from a whole bunch of other shit with this GI doctor. But the basic story is I have been on a proton pump inhibitor since I was pretty much diagnosed and they were invented, like Pepsid, right? Tums, Rolaids, that stuff. Because my side effect is my GI tract after all the radiation, and 30 years later, iffy shit. So I was put on, first it was like a Pepsid, then like Protonics and a bunch of other shit. And finally a brand called Dexilent came out in 2009, and they put me on that. There wasn't a generic, there wasn't anything. It was patented, whatever. And I've been on Dexilent ever since 2009. So my wife's company changed their policy to fuck you, Caremark. Not a sponsor, never a sponsor. And they just decided that Infinite Wisdom, I don't need this anymore. And they refused to cover Dexilent and the generic. And basically said, go back on Rolaids or Tums or whatever it was. And I had to go to Canada to get it. And thankfully I knew somebody who ran, one of those places in Canada, and I got it at their cost, which was still $250 for 3 months supply. I think it was with taxes and import shipping and all that stuff, was probably like $325, which is ludicrous. My Dexilent under the old plan was $10 a month. Right. So it took me a year to fight formulary exemptions, prior authorizations, all the jargony bullshit you go through. And it wasn't until I mentioned this after ranting on LinkedIn, so many people tried to help, it didn't work. I happened to find this organization through a friend of mine in New York. I forget their name. It's kind of like a state-based patient advocate society run by pharmacists and nurses. And it's taxpayer funded. And he put me in touch with their CEO. I spoke to her like once, and I don't know what fucking Harry Potter shit she pulled. The next day, Caremark said, fine, go on Dexilent. And they basically, it's $50 a month copay. So I'm paying $150 for 90 days instead of $325 for 90 days.
But also it could have been $10, as you pointed out
Right.
earlier through another avenue.
So again, just back to employers, you're at the mercy
100%.
of your employer, and I'm on my wife's plan.
Well, we're also at the mercy of the doctors because doctors choose what insurance they will accept. One thing that is infuriating as a New Yorker is that many doctors don't accept insurance at all. So I was looking for a new primary care physician. I'm over 50, I'm a woman, issues, whatever. You want someone who can relate to you, which I don't think my regular PCP can. I couldn't find one female doctor that sounded good on the internet that accepts any insurance at all. So there's that. But there's also the fact that if you want to bring back the jargon of patient centricity, it's not patient centric for you to have to find new doctors every time your insurance changes. And I don't know how to fix that. I'm not necessarily going to provide a solution on this during this discussion. But I feel like doctors should accept all insurance so you don't have to switch. Or maybe you make an exception if, you know, your patient of 20 years is under the insurance of their company, of their employer. Do you want to lose that patient? It almost seems ridiculous that you would even want to lose that patient.
Right.
And I know it's a lot of paperwork, but I almost feel like the insurance companies add that. I think that many of the costs are likely related to administration.
Right.
And all of that could be eliminated if they just kept things simple.
Right. Well, there's subfuckery there too, because some of the websites of these health systems, these specialists say they accept your insurance, but they haven't updated their website when they decide not to. So you go in there and they may think they take the insurance when in fact they don't. And then the bill shows up and you're like, what? How do you handle that?
I call every time, but as it relates to the $530 bill from a few weeks ago, to me, that was a surprise bill. I guess they are covering their asses by making you sign all the paperwork when you walk in for your appointment in the first place.
Yeah.
And it says you are responsible for anything your insurance doesn't pay.
Regardless if we fuck up.
But they refuse to tell you what you will owe. So I didn't know what I said. Well, what will I owe? And I had this issue. We talked about this on the last podcast for those who are chronic listeners.
I'll put a link in the description to the old show. Sure.
Excellent. My sister, very unfortunately, had ovarian cancer. Knock wood, she's fine now. She had stage 2B, which of course was misdiagnosed for many years, and had endometriosis that was never diagnosed. But 2 different doctors both said I should have a full-blown hysterectomy, which I did have. It took me 2 months to get an answer from NYU Langone as to what the anesthesia would cost. Because anesthesia is always a different bill from a different team.
Yes.
And they bill on their own. And it's not always covered, or a smaller percentage of it is covered. I actually, and I'm not on social media, I haven't been for quite some time, but I actually went on Twitter to say, hey, NYU Langone, I've been calling you. I've called every single department in your hospital organization. No one can answer me as to why or what my anesthesia is going to cost. You know, what department is covering this? It took 2 months. I had to write everyone's first name, last name down, their exact telephone number. I got a PDF that said it wouldn't be more than $270 for the anesthesia. But they broke it down, and of course it was like $12,000 or something like that. The hysterectomy gratefully was covered, but infuriating. Yeah. Why would a patient have to go through all of that? And thank God I'm a healthy patient. Imagine if you're not healthy.
Right.
Then what? And what if you don't have a family member or a family friend or a good close friend who can advocate for you if you can't advocate for yourself?
Right.
That's why advocacy matters.
Well done. Well, we could go on and on about all this insurance fuckery, but I want to wrap with this new segment I call, What Would ChatGPT Decide Your Pop Culture Icons Are? If you were a pop culture icon, who would you be? And I teased you before the show to think about this. Have you given any thought to who ChatGPT might think you are a combination of? Because I'll give you 3 people.
Are you going to give me them first, or I have to tell you first?
Well, anyone you think. I'll give you one is one of the most famous country music stars of all time.
That would be a person I would never know.
You would know her for sure.
Maybe, but not like off the top of my head.
Okay. One of them is one of the obvious stars of Parks and Rec.
Amy Poehler.
Yes.
Awesome. That's a great one.
Mm-hmm. And one of them is the meanest Meryl Streep character ever.
The one from The Devil Wears Prada.
Yes.
Miranda.
So you are a combination of Leslie Knope, who was Amy
from
Poehler's,
Parks and Rec, right?
Miranda Priestly, and
Excellent.
Dolly Parton.
Wow. See, I wouldn't even think that because I don't really listen to country music. No offense to anyone who does. Am I supposed to now say what I thought?
Yeah.
So I can only say this, walking around New York City,
Rabbi
living
Sussman.
in New York. Definitely not Rabbi Sussman.
Lois DeFleur. These are Binghamton people.
No. Ken Jacobs, if anyone remembers
Right.
him from Binghamton, look him up. You'll be shocked. When I walk down the streets of New York City, I get this a lot, and it doesn't necessarily thrill me, but Matt should be able to attest on this podcast that I'm an extremely stylish person. Mm-hmm. So I often get Sarah Jessica.
Yes. SJP.
And growing up, not so much now, but growing up, everyone told me I looked like Barbara Streisand.
Yeah.
Which I
can
don't
see
really
that.
think I do, but I don't think I look like either one of them, but they're both iconic. So if, I'm happy to think of myself as iconic.
So you failed the test, but you won the test at the same
You're
time.
right. I got 2 out of 3.
All right. Amy Gittelman, second time's a charm. We'll get you back again. So much healthcare fuckery.
So much.
These insurance companies, we're looking out for you.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Next time, folks, we'll see you soon.
Out of Patience with Matthew Zachary is a production of Matthew Zachary Worldwide. The executive producer is Matthew Zachary. It is mixed and edited by Kyle Moore. If you like the show, ratings and reviews are always welcome wherever you get your podcasts. If you have guest suggestions or would like to learn more about sponsorship opportunities, email podcast@matthewzachary.com. For more information about Matthew Zachary and Matthew Zachary Worldwide, visit matthewzachary.com.